What's up, gamers? It's your host, Cobra, and today I'm sharing early alpha on a new game called Heroes of Mavia. Now, there are a whole bunch of really interesting and cool gameplay and investment reasons why we're excited about this project, but I want to start with what I think is actually the most important part, and that is the mission statement outlined in the white paper from Scry Studios is right on point and lines up very nicely with our mission here at the Freeroll. They specifically call out right at the end of the white paper, which by the way is linked below, that our mission at Scry Studios is to bring blockchain gaming to the masses. And that's exactly what we're looking to help do here on the Freeroll. So let's start out with some of the basics, because if you're going to have a massively popular game, there's a couple of things that I want to see before I'm even looking at the game itself. And the first and most important for me is always, is there going to be mobile gaming support? And that is absolutely the case here. We're going to have mobile browser gaming that doesn't require any extra downloads right off of the bat, which makes the game a lot easier to play. I know I will be able to grind a lot more because of that feature. They are also eventually going to have an official app in both the Android and Apple app stores, which will be a major boost to their user base as well. The other thing that I look for in really any project, and am disappointed to not see often, is a fully docked team. But Scry Studios is a legit gaming company, and they've approached this professionally. The white paper includes a ton of people that are on the team and has their full names, pictures, and titles, which is really a great confidence booster. And then, of course, everybody's game goal is to have a huge number of users, but does this actually have a plan to get there? And the answer is a resounding yes. They've got a couple of different ways to make sure that that is possible, and we're going to talk about that a whole bunch later on in the video. Heroes of Mavia is a top-tier clan-based strategy game that's powered by NFTs and blockchain technology. And that in and of itself gives us a pretty decent picture, at least in general, of what the game itself is going to be. But one of the questions that I really like to ask developers when I get the chance is, which games have they taken inspiration from in terms of designing their game? And thankfully, they have answered that for us in great detail in the white paper. So let's take a look. The first one will be, no surprise, Axie Infinity. And we see this in a ton of white papers these days. I read a whole bunch of them, and this is by far the most commonly referenced inspiration. And it's a no-brainer because to date, it's the biggest game to have launched with a play-to-earn model. And in fact, play-to-earn is one of the things that they're taking inspiration from. Also, blockchain-based technology, the scholarship program, a dual token economy. But the one that I don't see very often that is very interesting here is a native marketplace that will be proprietary and specifically for Heroes of Mavia. Now, this I think will be a big boost to secondary sales because it makes it so much easier for players to find what they're looking for. Now, the second game that they have taken inspiration from is also relatively obvious, especially when you compare some of the early art that we have seen, and that is Clash of Clans. Now, clearly, it's the same type of game where you're building a base and a clan-based strategy. But they're also taking the online multiplayer, the live streaming and replay of battles, live leaderboards, which is great for ramping up the competition, as well as upgradable bases, characters, heroes, and items. Now, this is a bit of a longer video, so I know a whole bunch of you aren't going to make it to the end, so I'm going to stop and ask you right now to check and see if you've subscribed to the channel yet, and if not, please consider giving us a subscribe and maybe even a like. Now, before we jump into the actual gameplay, it's important that you know about the dual token economy in Heroes of Mavia. And the first one, which is the governance token, or the Axie Infinity equivalent of AXS, is called Mavia. And Mavia is the primary governance token in-game. It is also a currency that you're going to be able to use to buy and sell Heroes of Mavia NFTs, and it will also be rewarded for staking both the tokens and NFTs. One thing that is very different, though, from Axie Infinity is that Mavia is not going to be an in-game resource at all. The second token, and the one that we are going to be talking about a whole lot as we go through the gameplay, is Ruby. And Ruby is your primary reward token, or what we're going to be earning when we actually play the game itself. It is also going to be what we use to upgrade or do anything really in-game. We're going to be spending some amount of Ruby, and it's important to note that all Ruby spent in-game is automatically burnt. It can also be deposited and withdrawn, and we'll talk about some of those details a little bit later in the video. And in case you're not familiar with Axie Infinity, Ruby would be the equivalent of SLP, which is what players in Axie Infinity earn when they play the game. Now, there are 3 different types of NFTs in the game primarily, and these each bring their own unique use case and value to the ecosystem. The first is your land or base NFT. Second is Hero NFTs. And finally, there's also statue NFTs. Now, we're going to deep dive on each one, and we're starting off with what I believe is the most important, which is your land or base NFT. Now, the land NFTs are, in my opinion, the most important for one very simple fact, and that is in order to play the game, you either need to own or control a base, and the land NFT is your base. So if you want to play the game, you need to at least control a base. Now, you might be thinking, there's going to be a very limited number of land available, and doesn't that greatly limit the number of people that can actually play the game? And that's thankfully not the case. The team at Scry Studios has thought of that, and first they're going to have what they call partnerships, which is essentially their version of the Axie Scholarship. That means that you're going to enter an agreement with another player. That player will be the one that is playing the game, and you will have a prearranged split of the rewards that the player actually earns, very likely to be something in the neighborhood of 50-50. The other opportunity to access a base without owning it is a simple rental, and this is the same concept, except instead of splitting the rewards from playing the game itself, you're going to charge or pay a flat fee up front to use that base for a set period of time and keep anything that you earn. Now, the core of your land NFT is the headquarters or HQ, and this is simply where players will go in order to upgrade things like their heroes, buildings, troops, and likely a whole bunch more within their overall base. One thing that's really important to note is the HQ itself is also upgradable. However, it can only be upgraded using the in-game token Ruby, which is an important sync for that token and something that's going to add a whole bunch of value, because you know there's going to be some big spenders out there that want to buy a ton of Ruby right away so that they can max out their headquarters. But for players that are looking to grind it out, it also means that earning as many Ruby rewards as possible is really important as well. Another really important feature about the HQ portion of your land NFT is that the HQ level is going to determine your daily maximum Ruby earnings, and that likely means that the early strategy is going to be to dump as many resources into upgrading your HQ as possible. Now, when the time comes, we'll do the math and figure out if that's actually the truth or not, but safe to assume that that's what we're going to start with here at the Freeroll. Now, a player can own multiple land or base NFTs, and this opens up an interesting question. Will it be possible for multiple bases to work together, or even adjacent plots to build one single super base? I don't see anything about that in the white paper, so it's not likely something we're going to see early on, but potentially is a feature in the future as the game grows. Either way, it's important to note that you're not limited to just one. And finally, it's really important to call out that with all of the NFTs in Heroes of Mavia, and certainly with your land or base NFTs, when you upgrade it, that becomes a permanent feature of the NFT itself. So if you decided that you wanted to sell a base later on and you had raised its HQ level to the maximum and you've put in a whole bunch of other upgrades to your troops and things like that, then that is going to add additional value to the NFT itself and another way to play and earn. Next up is the Hero NFTs, and these are really fun because you're going to be able to equip up to 4 Hero NFTs to each base NFT, and these are going to be used for both defending your base as well as launching offensive attacks against rival bases. Now, similar to the base NFTs, the Hero NFTs will be limited in nature as well and can be bought and sold on the Heroes of Mavia marketplace. You can upgrade your heroes, and that will be done with Ruby to increase their attack stats, defense, health, things like that to strategically improve them for their different use cases. You can also purchase skins, and skins are totally cosmetic, but they still add a bunch of value to your hero NFT because everybody loves a cool skin. And once it's been attached, that is again a permanent upgrade to the hero NFT itself. Third and finally are the statue NFTs, and this is where things get quite interesting. Now each base can equip up to 4 statue NFTs, and those statues provide a special bonus to the base itself. Those bonuses can be things like increased training efficiency or increased resource production, reduced cooldown times, or reduced building times. There's all sorts of ways that they can evolve these abilities and continue to add to what's available so that you can mix and match for specific strategies. The other thing that I wonder about statue NFTs is, will these be something that are totally necessary to be competitive right off of the bat, or will you have the opportunity to slowly build those up and add statues to your base over time? I tend to think that because the matchmaking system is going to try to match you up against similarly skilled opponents, that it's probably going to be something that could be optional if you have a limited budget early on. Another important note is that statues are only going to provide 1 bonus per statue, and that means that they're not too likely to get overly complicated. You're not going to find some OP statue that is giving you a whole bunch of buffs and a huge advantage. You're going to have to build a strategy around the statues that you actually use. And again, this is another spot where it's likely going to be beneficial to own more than just the 4 that you have equipped so that you can mix and match based on what you're trying to accomplish. So you've got your base, you've got your heroes, you've got your statues. What are you actually doing in game to earn Ruby? Now, the first and likely most obvious way to earn Ruby is to attack another base and successfully win that battle. That is going to allow you to earn Ruby. The flip of that, though, is if somebody attacks your base and you defeat them, you're going to earn Ruby for that as well, even though you didn't actually actively do anything. It's going to be important that you check into your base every single day for a couple of reasons. And the first is that randomly you could see some obstacles appear on your base, and clearing those obstacles will allow you to earn some additional Ruby. There's also going to be daily challenges, and this will be very familiar to any mobile gamer. You're going to need to log in every single day and complete a list of tasks in order to earn some additional Ruby. Now, there's also going to be the partnerships, and that's where you're lending out your base to another player and earning a portion of their Ruby earnings from the aforementioned activities. And finally, there's also going to be wagered matches, which is something that sounds like a lot of fun. We're probably not going to do a ton of that because we're looking to generate some reliable income, but I do like to wager, and a bunch of my friends are going to get into this game for sure as well, so it's inevitable that we'll have at least a few wagered matches here on the Freeroll. Now, earning a whole bunch of Ruby is great, but said Ruby is not going to have very much value if there's not a reason to use it in game. And thankfully, the team has thought of a whole bunch of great use cases for Ruby right off of the bat. And the first most obvious one that we've already talked about is upgrading your NFTs. Upgrading that HQ, again, is going to increase your daily maximum, and upgrading your statues and hero NFTs is going to increase the effectiveness of your base and lead to more successful defenses and attacks. Now, Ruby isn't going to be the only in-game resource. It's just the only one that is withdrawable on the blockchain, but you can also use your Ruby to purchase things in-game like additional resources like gold or oil. You're also going to have the option to spend some Ruby to speed up certain processes, and this is fantastic for the ecosystem because there are always a ton of players that want to rush and max things out as early as they can or squeeze in more battles every day, and the fact that you're able to spend some of your Ruby in order to do more within a limited amount of time means that the value of Ruby is going to go up. And again, it's an important reminder for everybody to remember. Finally, you're going to need to use your Ruby to purchase decorations and skins. So these are the cosmetic items, but everybody loves cosmetic items. Just look at Fortnite. They run their entire business on skins, essentially. So this is going to be another really important sync for Ruby. And it's really important to note that all of the Ruby spent in-game is automatically burnt. So each time a player does any of these things, it is increasing the value of your Ruby. Whew, it's quite a bit. Let's zoom out and take a look at this dual token economy and the way that it's going to work. And the first thing to note is that there are two very important circles here. First is your in-game circle, or the Ruby circle, and this is how the Ruby is going to be flowing in and out of the game, both to upgrade things as well as to be pulled out for your earnings. And the Mavia token will be used outside of the game. That's going to add value to your heroes. It's also going to be your governance token, and you don't have to participate in both circles if you don't want to, but I think in order to maximize your earnings, that will likely be the strategy to go with. Now, it's also important to note that if you simply want to earn in-game by playing, you can do that because you're able to exchange your Ruby for Mavia tokens through the built-in exchange, which is a no-brainer in my opinion and a really nice feature to have. Now, a couple of important things to call out is that when you're purchasing NFTs through the marketplace with Mavia, there's going to be no fees, which is fantastic because players love to buy and sell and trade their NFTs. And for the in-game token of Ruby, you're actually going to get a bonus when you deposit, but pay a penalty when you withdraw. And that is going to be something that helps encourage players to keep their Ruby within the ecosystem instead of withdrawing it all the time. Here at the Freeroll, we are getting into a whole bunch of games, and one of the things that's really important for me when I'm making a large investment in a new game is there any passive earning opportunities on top of the active opportunities? And Heroes of Mavia absolutely provides that. We have talked about the partnerships that are available as well as renting NFTs. And that is great because, frankly, we haven't seen this game yet. We haven't played it. We have a good idea what it's going to be like because they've told us about their inspirations and what the NFTs are going to actually do already. And that is great. But at the end of the day, it might be really time consuming, or it might not be the most profitable one in our portfolio, or maybe the game is just not something that we personally find a lot of fun. And if that's the case, we have the option to continue investing in the ecosystem without having to be an active player. This is something that I really liked about Axie Infinity, and it's something that I really like here as well. The other reason why I think passive earning opportunities are really, really important is that I'm going to want to take breaks. That could be vacations, or maybe a game just gets to be a little bit too overwhelming for a while and I want to step away for a little bit and maybe try a different game or just take a break in general. And if you do that and your NFTs are only available for active earning, then you're missing out on dollars. However, if there's passive opportunities like there is with Heroes of Mavia, you can take a break, go on vacation, or stop playing the game yourself altogether and continue earning. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a look at the roadmap. And the really good news here, if you're watching this video anywhere near the published date, is that we are very, very early. Q1 of last year was simply the community launch. So if you're just finding Heroes of Mavia today, there's a Discord and Telegram link below to join the community, and that's a great way to start interacting with the team and other future players. Now, the current quarter, Q1 of 22, is going to be massive for any player that is interested in making an early investment of Heroes of Mavia. That is absolutely what we are going to do here. This is not financial advice, so you're going to need to do your own research before you make that decision yourself. But this quarter alone, we should expect to see the Mavia token launch. We should see staking go live. We should also see NFT sales for land, heroes, and statues, likely in that order because we know that land or base NFTs will be up first. Now, the further out we go on the roadmap, the less likely it is that the team delivers on time. And because this is new, we don't know what their track record is like just yet. So take the next couple of quarters with a grain of salt as a general guideline. But in Q2 of 2022, we're going to see alpha testing of the game. We're also going to get the web platform QA testing and private beta testing, which will be very exciting, especially if they let us have a peek so that we can share it with you on this channel. Now, if you're watching this video a little bit after the NFTs have been sold, then it's important to note that this period includes a lot of testing, and frankly, that tends to be the slowest period in a game's development, and that is when the secondary market may see some decreases in pricing as people tend to get impatient. This is no guarantee, so I highly recommend you get in on the initial sales if you're able to, but if you've missed out or simply want to add more to your roster, then typically this is a good time to go shopping because we're not going to have any active earning in game yet because the game hasn't been launched. And as I said, NFT investors tend to be impatient. Moving on to Q3, that is going to be a massive one for the project if they are able to stay on schedule, because Q3, which is July, August, September, should bring public beta gameplay. That is typically the major launch, and that is when all of your NFTs are going to start having their utility unlocked. Now, it's important to note that games often have developments, but this feels like a realistic estimate, especially if you're considering it towards the back half of the quarter. In addition to the public beta, we are also going to see the NFT marketplace turned on and a full web platform release, which is going to allow you to play on both PC and mobile. Finally, Q4 will be a big one as well, because that's when we will see the Heroes of Mavia version 1.0 release and the Ruby token launch. Those will be two huge milestones, and that will be when we are kicking into full play and earn gear. Now, this quarter will likely also bring gameplay balancing and additional NFT releases to support growth of the game. However, there's one big thing that you don't see here on the roadmap at all, and that is the official App Store and Google Play Store mobile apps. Those are planned for version 2.0, which I would assume is going to be a high priority in 2023. And that wraps up our Heroes of Mavia Alpha Deep Dive video. I hope you found this video valuable. It's a bit longer, but research is really important, and this is a very cool game with a lot going on. So it's important that you know what you're doing before you make even a small investment in this game. We are quite excited about it here at the Freeroll, and if you found this video helpful, Make sure you're following us on Twitter so that you are notified of all of the NFT gaming news that we are interested in and the latest videos as they're published. Also, make sure you've hit that like and subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds and really helps support the channel.